folks? Welcome back to whatever the hell this is. Mitchell Lee alongside Greg Calarco, who is currently en route back from, is it Philadelphia? Philadelphia is where this game was, right?
Sir.
The
Yes, sir.
the man got to go to a World Cup game. Brazil and Haiti may not have been the most nail biting event at the World Cup so far, but one, it didn't end in a tie, and two, he got to spend a bunch of time with a bunch of drunk Brazilians and Haitians having a good time. So I bet it was a blast.
It was a win-win. The atmosphere was incredible. Fans were chanting, most of the game, standing up, waving their flags. The canary yellow of Brazil, the blue and red of Haiti. It was just, there's so much national pride in these nations, even the ones we've seen, the Curaçaos, the Cape Verdes. They really don't have a chance of contending or even getting out of the group, but they're so proud of what their nation has already accomplished. And it was an amazing life experience for me.
I'm glad you had that, man, because I know that you've been looking forward to this, not just for this year, but this has been on your circled for years now. So I'm glad that this is something that you're going to be able to talk about for decades to come. I'm really glad that you had that. Speaking of things that I'm really glad that happened, the New York Knicks winning the NBA Finals over the San Antonio Spurs. The 53-year drought is over as Knicks in 5 over San Antonio, and this entire NBA Finals playoff run was just kind of, I don't want to say heaven sent or straight out of a dream, but that's kind of exactly what it was, because I remember watching the Knicks go down 2-1 to the Atlanta Hawks and thinking, if they lose this series, they might just blow the whole thing up, or maybe that Giannis trade happens, but you can't run it back with this current starting five. You start to regret the Mikal Bridges trade a little bit, especially the way that he was playing early on in that Atlanta series. And then as soon as I married my lovely wife, it's like the Knicks just said, Mitchell, Sarah, we got you. And unless the big orange doofus is in town, we're never losing again. And that is exactly what happened. As that they beat the Hawks by, what was it, 57, 56 points in the closeout game. The Sixers never had a chance in that series. Analytically, the Cavaliers had a decent series against the New York Knicks, but on planet Earth, that was a sweep with a historic 22-point comeback in the fourth quarter. And then the Spurs, you really get the sense, and I guess I'll start here with our playoff talk before we get into the Knicks, because I almost find it more interesting to talk about the team that loses than the team that wins, especially when everyone thought that there was like a dawn of a new NBA dynasty coming. And the whole thing all year was whoever wins that Spurs Thunder series, or Thunder Nuggets, or whoever comes out of the West is going to win the NBA Finals pretty easily. And Josh Hart even said so himself. As soon as they saw Wemby and the Spurs celebrating like they did, they knew that they could beat them, because they thought that it was all done. They thought that that's what they had to do to win the title. What are your takeaways from the Spurs this playoffs?
Yeah, Spurs, obviously, they overachieved. They're coming in, everything's ahead of schedule. Dylan Harper had an incredible playoff run. He's 20 years old. He's only going to get better. Wembanyama, 22. I think what it came down to was we've never really seen – we've seen LeBron-type run. We've seen Kobe was kind of second fiddle. But in terms of these superstars, they kind of have to be of a certain age. We saw MJ, LeBron, Steph. They kind of had to wait a long time. And I think if Wemby won this title and was the dominant force that he was all year, and in the early rounds, if he displayed that against the Knicks and they actually closed this out, I think the sky would have been the limit. You know, it still is, but I think projecting out wise, you know, you could say he's on a trajectory to be a top 5, top 3 player of all time, just because no one else has even been the alpha on a championship team at age 22. It's like Magic Johnson, basically. But you know, he had a really good team around him. But you know, overall, I'm taking a step back after a week now, 2 weeks after the series has ended. It always stings when you lose in the finals, but I leave that series thinking, okay, the Spurs, they still beat the Thunder, they're still ahead of schedule, and there's all these things we could talk about with them, De'Aaron Fox's albatross of a contract, and just everything that went wrong, the 5 double-digit leads that they blew a double-digit lead every single game to the Knicks, unthinkably, but in the end, I think the Spurs still have to feel great about their franchise and the future.
I think we're on the same page as far as that goes, because the thing that was giving me the most comfort heading into the playoffs, or into the finals rather, besides just the normal, well, the Knicks have had a lot more rest than the Spurs argument that kept coming up in the Knicks' favor, was that I kept just going back and looking at the dominant players throughout the years and when they won their first title, and it was all mid 20s, maybe 25, 26, 27, and I kept thinking of the Thunder when they went with KD, Harden, and Westbrook, and they were all around 21, 22, or somewhere in that realm, and they had played more NBA basketball than Wemby, Castle, and Dylan Harper have so far in their career as well. They had made a few playoff. Yeah, they lost to Dirk in 2011, so they had been in the playoffs before. Unlike these guys, who all of them making their playoff debut this season, I think they have to feel good about the playoff run. They beat the Thunder and totally making them question everything going on with Chet Holmgren. Although I might add, people seem to forget that Jalen Williams missed basically the whole series. And I do think OKC wins that series if he's healthy and available, but you play with what you have, and the Spurs got the job done. But the big thing that I feel like only me and Nick Wright noticed throughout the playoffs, and especially in the Knicks series, is how Wemby would come out first quarter every single game dominant, and that's where they would build those double digit leads. And then as the game went on, he would completely wear down, and he would just start jacking up the worst shots that you'll see. His defense was nowhere near as intimidating as it was in the first quarter, and he just didn't seem to have the stamina required to finish out these games. And so that's something that I'm curious if that's just a fatal flaw of his moving forward, or if that's something that he can work on. It kind of reminded me a little bit of 2011 LeBron, and how he just towards the end of those games, I don't think it was a stamina issue with him at all, but he just didn't close out the games very well. And eventually, very soon after that, he got much better in that regard. So I want to know what happens with Wemby as far as his conditioning, because he was playing a lot more minutes in the finals, of course, than he was in the regular season. And some guys can just kind of flip that switch, and he was not able to do so. I do also think you got to talk about Mitch Johnson, and every single minute that Dylan Harper wasn't on the floor was a minute that I was happy, because as a Knicks fan, he was the one that scared me the most. He was just phenomenal on both ends of the floor, and Castle was really good defensively for a lot of that series until I think Brunson kind of wore him down as the series went on. but he didn't really have it going offensively, especially in, I think it was game 5. He was like 1 for 10 or something along those lines. But Mitch Johnson just never seemed to have the right guys on the floor when they needed to be there, unlike Mike Brown, who, whether it was Landry Shamet, Mitchell Robinson, Jose Alvarado, who hadn't gotten much run in the playoffs but was massive in game 4, he kind of knew all the right strings to pull, as opposed to Mitch Johnson, who it just felt like De'Aaron Fox had the ball in his hands way too much. Harper was off the floor all the time. Luke Cornett was on the floor a lot. I thought we'd see more Harrison Barnes just giving guys a blow. I mean, Champagny was fine, but he was another one of these players that started the game a lot better than he finished it. And I think that the coaching really made a big difference in the NBA Finals, where Mitch Johnson just, I don't know, he just didn't seem to have a good handle on things.
Yeah, I agree with that. Coaching was definitely a key factor, and I'm really happy for Mike Brown. It's the guy that was the first. I fell in love with those LeBron late Cavs teams that he was the coach of, and he's been around. He's won some championships with the Warriors. He's taken Sacramento to heights that they hadn't been to in a while, and then kind of got the crappy end of the stick, the deal there. But
do you remember how he got the crappy end of the stick?
In Sacramento?
Yeah.
Something De'Aaron Fox related?
Yeah, he called out De'Aaron Fox for fouling on a 4-point play when that was the only way they could lose, and he was fired like the next day. So, kind of interesting that he won a finals because De'Aaron Fox was cheeks.
Yeah, that reminds me just about the Kings. It seems like their ex-people are always having success, and I think the Washington Wizards, I think they've had a player on a championship-winning team now for, it's like 40 years or something. It's pretty crazy that the Wizards are so inept. And
the Kings, Wizards, and Timberwolves kind of make up the holy trinity of just sad fans watching their players go on to do great things immediately after they leave.
Yeah. I want to respectfully push back on something you said about Wemby. You compared it to LeBron in 2011. I think that LeBron in 2011 was 100% mental, and it wasn't Ben Simmons type yips, but there was something mentally where there was so much weight and stress and expectation and just all this pressure that was on LeBron from a very young age. And I think physically, I mean, he's LeBron James, 6'8". He's one of the purest athletes we've ever seen. I think Wemby, though, is 95% physical, and we saw it throughout
I agree.
We saw it throughout the regular season. He had some injuries the first couple years of his career, so he missed some games. He stayed relatively healthy this year, but they still, I don't have the numbers in front of me. They play him 29 to 32 minutes a game, and that was everybody's big knock in the MVP race. All the Jokic and SGA voters were saying, well, yeah, Wemby's resume is as good as anyone, but look at the minutes played. And I just don't know he's got to do something differently. Maybe it's just tough when you're 7'5", but I also saw that he was wearing down, late in these games, and it's like he's a force of nature in the first quarter, and in the fourth quarter he's just like trying not to get big boyed by Cat and Mitchell Robinson, and it's completely different. I don't know what happened, honestly.
Yeah, it's like watching a completely different player, because in game 5, it felt to me very early on like, all right, guess we're going to have to go win this thing in the Garden, because in the first quarter, he had like 4 or 5 blocks. Anybody who even tried to get into the paint was getting swatted. It was just a no-fly zone there. And after the first quarter, none of that. You got the play where Brunson's taken into the hole. there were a bunch of times where OG Anunoby just bodied him in the paint and was able to get a good dunk off. Cat challenged him early and often, especially in the first couple of games. Yeah, after that first quarter, he just really wears down, and that's going to be something that regular season wise, I'm not concerned about it whatsoever because again, he's playing less minutes. They have a good team around him, but it's if he wants to stack rings, this is going to be either something he cleans up or it's going to be a fatal flaw that keeps him from being one of those top 3 to 5 guys. And I'm concerned maybe because I've seen it before, because we'll get to the Knicks very soon. Kristaps Porzingis, while nowhere near as gifted as Wembanyama, and nowhere didn't reach the heights, was someone that I thought could be like a perennial All NBA player. And when you're that tall and that small and move like that, injuries are a thing that can come up. And we've already seen, like a blood clot issue. I know that's not really injury related, but Giannis was kind of able to avoid these things because Giannis bulked up. And he's just had, luck is a big part of it as well, let's be honest. Giannis has been extremely fortunate not to run into any big injuries. And maybe I'm just morbid, I don't know. But maybe Wemby, I mean, with his build, injuries have to be a concern. And so I don't know that it's guaranteed that he makes a bunch of runs. But maybe that's just, Chet Holmgren has a very similar build to him, and he's already run into injuries.
Yeah, I agree with you that it seems to me like, Wemby, we think he's going to play for another 15 years and be at this All-NBA level for 15 years. And on paper, he will be. But you could probably cross out 2 or 3 of those seasons just completely because of injuries. And it's not like he's going to be healthy every season. And then last first point I wanted to make before, we move on to the Knicks and better things, De'Aaron Fox lost in this series. And I couldn't believe some decisions were bad, but then also he was just missing shots at the free throw line. He was beating his man off the dribble quite easily sometimes. And some of these missed shots right at the free throw line, and then some of these decisions, Wemby had the bad turnover. What was that, game 1, game 2 at the end of the game? But I feel like otherwise, De'Aaron Fox, he lost them this series, and there's not a lot of outs for the Spurs because, 4 years over, I think it's over $200 million or something.
Yeah, that's not a contract you can really get out of unless someone stupid is willing to eat it.
Yeah, so roster-wise, they're in a good place because Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper are absolute studs. Yeah. But I just don't know, GM-wise, how you make it work with Fox's contract. Ideally they need, I don't know, what do you think? Cornette's fine. They need another Harrison Barnes or Champagny, but combine those guys and Fox into one, Jeremy Grant or Tobias Harris, someone maybe, a little better than them. They need someone at the 3-4 position, I'd say, that they can kind of consolidate assets for, but Fox is going to be hard to get away from him.
Well, do you know who I thought we were going to see more of? And when we did, I'll be honest, he was quite bad. 6th man of the year, Keldon Johnson.
Yeah.
He was a complete no-show in the finals. And when they did play him, he was terrible. I just thought that he was going to be more active. And, yeah, De'Aaron Fox, it's been talked to death about, why don't you just burn some clock and not go up for that layup against OG Anunoby. I think even worse was the fact that he was the one that was supposed to box out OG on the Brunson shot that he tipped in, and he was went over to help Wemby on defense. Some puzzling decisions, but also he wanted to play he's a better shooter than he is. De'Aaron Fox is not a 3-point shooter. And he took a lot of threes in these finals. And every time he did, I was happy to see him do it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, let's get to the fun stuff. Let's talk about the New York Knicks, NBA Finals champions. Extremely happy to see it, at least for me, because I remember back in the days when it was I was thinking, man, maybe we can get something out of Alonzo Trier, and tricking myself into thinking that, all right, maybe this whole Jeremy Lin thing can go a little bit further. Than no, it's not. And Kristaps Porzingis, and like I mentioned earlier, was kind of a fool's gold moment, and then they traded him away. Uh, Julius Randle was fun to invigorate the Garden again, but I just hated watching Julius Randle play playoff basketball. I didn't like RJ Barrett either. And the fact that they turned all these pieces into a lineup that complemented each other so wonderfully, it's really impressive, but it all starts with the decision that I remember we were both clowning Jalen Brunson, giving him that money. And it was the rumors were either Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell, or DeJounte Murray. And boy, did they pick correctly.
That's true. Can you imagine if they had Donovan Mitchell?
I still think that this team would have made the finals this year with Donovan Mitchell. But I just trust Jalen Brunson so much more. He's just earned that.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's be honest. I still remember watching that Mavericks Jazz series where, coincidentally, Brunson, without Luka Doncic, handled Donovan Mitchell's Jazz. But, I mean, even, you can lie to yourself only so much. I mean, even the staunchest Jalen Brunson supporter could not have imagined this in a million, billion, trillion years, what he's turned into. I still I don't get it. I don't really fathom the NBA archetype that Jalen Brunson is, because I always believed that, I subscribe to a very simple NBA philosophy that most NBA fans subscribe to, and that in order to win a championship, your best player has to be over the height of 6'2", 6'3", Steph Curry, whatever height he is. He's an exception because he can shoot from Jupiter. But Jalen Brunson, he doesn't. I mean, he's not just a shooter. He's physical. He wears you down in the paint. Like, it's not like a John Stockton or a Steve Nash or one of these point guard, Allen Iverson even, or Chris Paul. Like, Jalen Brunson is physical, and late in the games, it's his ability to ward off defenders and create space. And even though he's 5'11" or whatever his true height is, I don't care what he's listed at, whatever his true height is, he's able to actually create space and get it over much taller shot blockers. And props to him. I mean, that guy is a dog. I'm not ready. I've seen some pretty what he prisoner of the moment takes with him. I see Bill Simmons calling him like a top 50 player of all time. His career resume, let's not call him better than a Steve Nash or a Chris Paul right now. Another year like that, sure, I get that a Knicks championship in 2026 means more than like KD winning a championship in 2017. Absolutely, I agree with you, but that shouldn't vault Brunson into the top 50. I mean, let's have a few more All NBA seasons, but yeah, he's on top of the world. He's the king of New York. I can't believe what he did.
I'm glad that we see eye to eye on that, and I figured that we would. As far as there have been a lot of prisoner of the moment, like Jalen Brunson, career wise, better than James Harden, and no, James Harden's been doing this for a decade and a half. Brunson just needs that longevity. He's got a higher peak as far as what he was able to do in the playoffs than those guys, but a lot of those guys mentioned also have MVPs and 6-7 years of being an all NBA type guy. So Brunson just needs the longevity. of a Harden or a Nash or something like that, but he's certainly his peak incredible, especially come playoff time. Like I saw someone say OG Anunoby is a better player than Paul George, and I'm like, okay, we're going way too far, and I'd name my firstborn after OG Anunoby right now, so that's saying a lot coming from me. First white kid named Agugwa that we've ever seen, but I'm sure that someone will have to do it in the state of New York or New Jersey. Karl-Anthony Towns, another guy where I did like that trade a lot more when I saw it because I just I didn't think Julius Randle was one of the clear and obvious dynasty. And I'm not saying the Knicks are a dynasty, but just the phrase dynasty starts after you guys, because this dude come playoff time was just a black hole. He missed every shot. If the ball went to him, it wasn't getting moved around. And the Knicks are a team that pride themselves on good ball movement. And Karl-Anthony Towns and the decision to really flow the offense through him after they went down 2-1 in Atlanta. A lot's been said about that, and I think that really got everyone. It put the onus on ball movement. And one of my biggest complaints with the Knicks in the Brunson era, as much as we call him Captain Clutch, and he does have some of those clutch moments in the NBA since joining the Knicks, is that everyone in the building knew that it was going to be Brunson with the ball in his hand. And we have plenty of capable guys that can make shots. I was texting you during the Knicks game. I want Anunoby. He's the guy that I trust the most right now. And I think that the decision to kind of have Cat as more of a ball handler, that I was frustrated that they weren't really doing as much against the Spurs. It got more people involved, and ball movement was more of the point and purpose of the offense, rather than, all right, we're going to get the ball to Brunson, especially late in games, and everybody else get out of the way. Also, once they started moving the ball through Cat late in games, we didn't need Brunson. We were playing Tyler Kolek in the fourth quarter because it was a 30-point game. Yeah, man, I do kind of love Huck Porty. He played 2 minutes against the Spurs, but they were 2 impactful minutes. In that game 5, he played really well in a game where Cat basically was a non-participant except to foul people in game 5. But Cat as a ball handler, and particularly really pressing Wemby early in the series and making him feel that pressure, was it was great to see. I loved how they used him. And that trade, I mean, this is a roster built on trades. It wasn't the draft and develop roster of the pre-KD Warriors, but it also wasn't meant to be like a dream, like a super team type of thing. These were all good players, but we weren't bringing in top 5, top 10 guys and just stacking them upon each other. OG Anunoby was traded for RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, and I think a second round pick. And I was a little critical of that trade just because I really liked Emmanuel Quickly, which is a stupid thing to say considering all we've gotten out of OG. But part of me was like, RJ Barrett's no longer in a Knicks uniform. Good, I'll take it. However we can make that happen, good, because I was not an RJ Barrett fan at all. I know he had his moments with the Raptors in the playoffs this year, but he didn't have bigger moments than OG Anunoby, I'll tell you that for sure. And going into game 5, it seemed clear to me that OG was going to be the MVP of the series because he was the most reliable player. But then when Brunson goes and puts up 45 in a closeout game, kind of shuts the door on not just the series, but the finals MVP discussion. And that was a trade that, again, inarguably, Knicks win that trade, even if they don't win the finals. The Josh Hart trade, you basically gave up Cam Reddish and a late first. Cool. Josh Hart, again, did he have he could have been the GOAT and not the greatest of all time. I mean, like, the way it used to be, the GOAT of game 4 if he misses the closeout on Castle. He misses he's not sure whether he wants to do a layup or a dunk, so he just kind of does some halvesy and misses it. But that's a guy that maybe apart from Brunson, the smallest player on the court, but no one's moving around more than him, getting rebounds. And then Mikal Bridges, 6 first-round picks, or I think it was 6, to the Brooklyn Nets. And, the Nets are, I don't know if I've ever seen a team more in hell than the Brooklyn Nets right now, realizing that no one in their city gives a damn about them. And also, yeah, all of your picks are going to be late. You didn't get in the top 3 for the lottery. Not a good time for the Brooklyn Nets, but that Mikal Bridges trade, I mean, he plays great defense. He was a beast in the mid-range for the majority of the playoffs. This is just a group of guys that complement each other so incredibly well, and I hope that they can keep this core together for a few years. I'm not counting on multiple rings or anything like that, but let's see what happens.
It's definitely a GM masterclass, and the Knicks had to strike while the iron was hot this year in terms of, I just look at the preseason odds and even the pre-playoff odds. I don't think people were picking the Knicks to win the championship. I certainly always had the Celtics ahead of them pre-playoffs. Before the year, they might have been my favorite, but, then the Pistons kind of came out of nowhere and were really impressive. And then, there's still 3, 4, 5 teams in the West that I think just about anyone would pick in the series against the Knicks all year. So, props to them for striking while the iron's hot. 8th different NBA champion in the last 8 years. I expect that to probably, I doubt the Knicks repeat next year, but, of course, that's the last thing on their mind right now. Only other thing I want to say about the Knicks is I do kind of want to be a prisoner of the moment about OG Anunoby. I look quite frequently at the Basketball Reference has this Hall of Fame probabilities area, and it's like, Kawhi Leonard, 99.8%, Kevin Love, 74%, Derrick Rose, 32%. And I just, I think it's a fun snapshot. Joe Johnson, like, if he blows the guy who is the admissions officer, whatever. But OG Anunoby has to be, like, over 1 or 2% for the Hall of Fame, right? I'm not crazy. Like,
you do have to keep in mind that he didn't play during the Raptors season. He has a ring technically, but he didn't play.
He didn't play at all in 2019?
Let's see.
I thought he was on that championship team and contributing in the playoffs. Because obviously that would have a big impact on that.
I don't think he played in the playoffs is the thing. I think he played in the regular season, but I don't think he played in the playoffs. Let me I'm trying to see Basketball Reference. I want to see if he does have odds.
This playoff games for 2019. I swear I remember him, but
no, he did not play a minute in the playoffs in 2019. His most famous playoff moment before then was that LeBron made a game winner over him in Game 3 in the famous LeBronto series.
Yeah, 2018. That's right. All right, so that kind of puts a dampener on those talks. But I just think he was underrated before the last couple of series, and then, like you said, could have easily had a case for Finals MVP before Brunson scored 50% of the Knicks' points in the clincher and became immortal in the biggest and greatest city on earth. So Brunson's in a class of his own, but OG, I just think a two-way guy. We were comparing him to Kawhi in texts, and I think shot creation. He can do a lot. I think his usage rate could be a whole lot higher, and the Knicks just have a luxury of not needing him to have a very high usage rate because they have Brunson. They can run through Cat. Mikal Bridges is on paper their third banana, quote unquote. So, OG, it's kind of like just playing with house money. It's like KD on those Warriors teams where he could roam, he could really excel in a defensive role and focus on that end of the floor, hit open shots. But I mean, the tip shot in Game 4 will be talked about for centuries and centuries to come. I hope he gets a statue of that moment. I hope he gets all his flowers. I hope Suni Lee, slides in his DMs. I hope he gets everything in this world that he wants because he's just a baller.
Greg, you'll be disappointed to know that he has a 0.04% probability and is 73rd among active players behind guys like Dante DiVincenzo, Miles Turner,
What?
Jordan Poole, Kevon Looney, Josh Hart, Peyton Pritchard, Fred Van Vliet, Denny Advia, Kristaps Norman Powell, Clint Capella. Yeah, I don't get that particularly.
Kevon Looney, yes. At least he's got a whole bunch of rings, but Dante DiVincenzo, some of these role players that weren't even on championship teams, I'm like,
Yeah. Jalen Brunson currently has a 13.1% chance, by the way.
It should be a lot higher than that, but okay.
That's what I would say. He's currently around the range of the Devin Bookers, Jalen Browns, and Trae Youngs of the world, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Last point on the NBA I want to make, or question I want to ask. What is your biggest non-finals takeaway from the playoffs?
Oh, non-finals?
Because mine is Boston. And the whole thing about Jaylen Brown, because I think Jaylen Brown played on the level that we're accustomed to seeing Jason Tatum play at this year. And I'm curious to see if that's going to have some sort of divide where they have to pick one of the two. You see it all the time with, hey, I want to be the number one on my team. We saw it with, Shaq and Kobe, not comparing Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to them, but we see this dynamic before where I want to be, the number one on my own team. And I'm curious if that's going to cause, Jaylen Brown came out and said, this was the most fun I'd ever had in the season. Jason Tatum tried to come back. It looked successful there for a minute, but then missed a bunch of playoff time. And the Celtics ultimately blow a 3-1 lead to a Sixers team that was just kind of happy to be in the playoffs. I am very curious to see what happens with them. If, Joe Mazzulla's on the hot seat, blowing a 3-1 lead with expectations like that in a year where you have a very unproven team as the 1 seed. I think Celtics fans came into the year expecting all right, maybe we can get in the playoffs this year, maybe win a round, but with Tatum gone, the expectations aren't the same. And then the regular season came around and they were, I don't know if they were the favorite to make it out of the East odds-wise, but they seemed to be the favorite just amongst the general public to make it out of the East. And then to not even win a single round, that was about as disappointing of a playoff series as I can remember in the last decade or two in the first round. So I am very interested to see how they respond.
Yeah, I agree. Celtics is definitely very interesting this offseason and all the Jaylen Brown comments. I mean, saying a season where you lose as minus 1,200 series favorites to the Sixers in the first round, just because you're the star of the team as opposed to winning a title as a second banana, saying that one, the former trumps the latter is kind of crazy talk. my doomsday scenario with the Celtics would be if that friction between Brown and Tatum causes them to package Brown as something for Giannis, because I'm a Boston hater. You know, I know you're the same way. I do not generally root for Boston teams. And I love Giannis. He has been one of my favorites since he came into the league. So I don't know what I would do there. I really don't know if Giannis would trump the Boston for me, and I would still root for him. But you know, hopefully he stays far away from Beantown. And other NBA storylines, I think the Nuggets, you know, it's a pivotal offseason for them. Jokic, when you have a generational player, you can't be losing in the first round so easily. Aaron Gordon, his health, you know, his knees might finally be beyond repair, and he's just a key piece for them. So what do you do with him? I also think that the tanking storylines, you know, the NBA, while I don't love what they've done with the draft lottery, which I believe is this week, you know, I don't love what they did with those odds, but I do think it's a step in the right direction. So, you know, maybe tanking will be. It was such a prominent storyline this year. Hopefully, it's not as big a thing next season, and we'll see, you know, where we go from there. But definitely heading in the right direction.
See, I have a very different viewpoint on tanking than most other people. I think, hey, if you want to do it, do it. But I understand people pushing back and wanting to kind of curb that behavior, I guess. But some teams just suck, regardless of what they have going on. And you know, you wouldn't have the current Spurs if these guidelines were in place. You wouldn't have Dylan Harper on San Antonio. He'd be somewhere else. And I'm anti-lottery as a whole, but I don't know. We'll see how this thing plays out from year to year, and if they make any changes to it. But let's move over to the World Cup, which has just been a delight to watch so far. I know that the difference in, you know, match day 1 and match day 2 has already been felt, as the urgency is turned up. Match day 1, we saw a lot of draws, and match day 2, it seems like, you know, teams are pressing a lot more as they, you know, kind of see the group kind of, you know, where teams stack up. What's been the biggest surprise to you so far?
Well, biggest surprise, you know, you like to clown me for my World Cup predictions, and admittedly, I've put too much stock into Belgium's golden generation in the past. That's fine, whatever. This year, you know, I placed a lot of bets. I made some, you know, I did my YouTube, my snowman full predictions video where I went through all the groups, all, you know, the knockout stage, everything. So far, it's been pretty business as usual, with two massive exceptions. Turkey, over 60 shots in 2 games, 0 goals, eliminated before match day 3 is absolutely insane to me. I thought I picked them to win that group that the USA has just ran away with. So I feel very stupid about Turkey. And then Ecuador, I'm watching that game last night with Alec, and I'm just in disbelief. Ecuador is a team with 2 of the best defenders in the world. They have Pacho for PSG, who just won his 2nd Champions League in a row. They have Nketiah for Arsenal, just won the Premier League. He's a world-class fullback. They have Moises Caicedo, maybe the best defensive midfielder in the world. But they just do not have anything in terms of attacking flair, creativity, finishing ability. It's Enner Valencia at 36 years of age. It's the same rinse and repeat cycle that hasn't worked, hasn't produced goals. So, you know, Ecuador, I thought they would give Germany a real run for their money to come in 2nd in Group E. And for them, now they're going to have to beat Germany in match day 3. And Germany, you could say, okay, they've already won the group, so it's going to be their B team. I mean, Germany's B team will still be favored, you know, on FanDuel against Ecuador's A team, because Germany is one of those top 8 nations that just has a slew of great players and guys who will be itching to, you know, show Julian Nagelsmann, hey, you know, maybe consider me for some knockout minutes. But, Yeah, Ecuador and Turkey, just not being able to finish chances, 0 goals between the two of them in their 4 total games has been wild to me.
Yeah, there's been some pretty shocking ties, even if it's just beyond the expectations for the game. It's just watching the game because, Spain Cape Verde is probably the biggest shock as far as that's concerned. And Spain had their chances, but Cape Verde's goalie standing on his head the majority of that game. I think back to the early, the first two days. I'm pretty sure Switzerland had absolutely no business tying with Qatar. That was a game where it looked like they were going to win by multiple goals, and then all of a sudden, last minute, Qatar comes in and gets a draw out of that one. Let's see here. The Cristiano Ronaldo discussion has been a dominant one after they tie with the Dr. Congo, and that was. Where do you fall on that? I imagine that there's more interesting storylines from this World Cup, but none have been as dominant in the media as far as this feels like the year where Ronaldo might be holding back Portugal rather than the opposite.
Well, first I just have to say, those games in and of themselves, yes, Spain, Switzerland, Portugal, all drawing those teams were shocks as results. In a vacuum, but a tournament as a whole, Spain, Switzerland, and Portugal will be fine. Spain and Switzerland will certainly still win their groups or at least come in second. Portugal, Colombia has the edge on them now to win the group, but Portugal will still come in second. So that's why my mind didn't go to them first. Yes, it's a historic result for a nation like Cape Verde that has 500,000 people living in it. But yeah, the tournament storylines, I guess. Spain is playing Saudi Arabia right now. I expect them to beat the Saudis by 3 or 4 goals.
Same.
If we're being honest. So, they're still second in the FanDuel odds behind France, I'm sure, for the title. So we'll see about them. Portugal, yeah, I do think it's just funny because Ronaldo has this Hall of Fame legendary career, and he's always been the best player on every single team he's played on. And for years even, he was on the Portugal teams when he started his career in 06, 08, they were pretty good. He had a good supporting cast. But then there was this period in, from 2012 to 2018. Or I guess, so they win the Euros in 2016. I guess that's different. But he had a lot of teams in the 2010s where it was not up to the standards of France, Netherlands, Spain, Italy, England, Germany. And he was kind of putting them on his back. And now it's just funny to me that he is 41 years old, and his team is – this is the best midfield at the World Cup. You say what you want about Spain or France or whomever, but the fact that they have the 2 guys from PSG and Neves and Vitinha, and then Bruno Fernandes, who was an absolute no-show against Dr. Congo. He was he broke the Premier League record for most assists this year with Manchester United. Just nothing from him, nothing from Bernardo Silva. I think it's tricky because Roberto Martinez, the manager, and what do you do with a guy who has given his nation everything? They've won the Nations League, they've won the Euros, they've done everything except make a truly deep run at the World Cup. They made the semifinals when he was 21 at the 2006 World Cup, but we haven't really seen a dominant run like Messi did in 2014 or 2022. I think, honestly, if I was the coach and politics and storylines aside, I would probably bring him off the bench and play him 30, 40 minutes a game, and then start a guy like Ramos or someone else at the number 9, just because his mobility is so limited at this point in his career.
Yeah, I honestly, I defer to you whenever it comes to soccer knowledge in general, but just watching that game, I did think this isn't somebody that I would want on for a full 90 minutes. And I would lean more towards bringing him off. If my memory serves me correctly, that's how, and feel free to call me a dumbass for getting this wrong. I feel that's how Miroslav Klose ended his career with the German national team, right? He was coming in late rather than being on for 90 full minutes.
Yeah, the 2014 World Cup, he definitely wasn't 90 minutes every game, but two completely different players. Klose, mobility was never his MO. His MO was right place, right time. If there's a give me chance in the box, I'm going to put it away 99 times out of 100. Ronaldo has, and it's funny to me that Messi has aged so much better than Ronaldo the last few years, because Messi's strength has always been the quick feet, the dribbling, something you think would wane as you get into your late 30s, whereas Ronaldo has been a flashy dribbler, but he also had the long shot abilities. He had, he is more of a finisher in the box than, say, a Messi. So it's funny to me that we're watching Messi who's about to turn 39, I think, this week, and he looks like he hasn't lost a step, and then Ronaldo is over there. Looks like he could, use a walker to get around on the pitch.
I know that only about half of the teams, honestly, about half of the teams have played 2 games so far. But what team so far strikes you as the most, do not buy into this, this is fool's gold of the tournament so far?
Fool's gold. Well, let's go. Let's do a little group soiree here. So
let's do it.
Most fool's gold. Group A. Mexico, they're not aesthetically pleasing. They want to win games 1-0, but they've handled their business against the Koreans. There was the goalkeeping error. They handled their business against the 9-men South Africa. Whatever. If they're going to be playing in Mexico City until the quarterfinals, if they get there, good for them. I think that's fine. They'll win a round of 32 game probably, and then they could play England in the round of 16, so that'll be a lot of fun. But I wouldn't say Mexico. Canada and Switzerland in Group B. They've, Canada, the injury to Kone was sad to watch last game. Hopefully they get Alphonso Davies back at some point, but I wouldn't call them fool's gold. Brazil, Morocco, have handled their business. USA, I would not call fool's gold. I think they have been amazing and done things that no U.S. team has ever done before. So props to them in Group D.
Does the Pulisic injury concern you?
Yeah, a little bit, but you got 12 days, so hopefully he's back at full strength on July 1st in Santa Clara. Group E, I might have said Ivory Coast before yesterday, but then they really took it to the 4-time world champs Germany for about 80 minutes until Dennis Undavs, of all people, came off the bench and scored a couple. Group F, well, Sweden, I would have said Sweden before yesterday, but now obviously it's kind of, no kidding, it's fool's gold, because they play that terrible Tunisia team where the coach got players out of position. The guy literally got fired. I think only the 4th coach to get fired during the World Cup, and he was the first ever to get fired after the first match.
Wow.
So, Sweden was never as good as that 5-1 scoreline indicated against Tunisia. Japan, Netherlands, I think they're formidable foes.
I've liked Japan a lot. I thought they played really well against the Netherlands.
Yeah, and they will be, they're likely to play either Brazil or Morocco. Brazil, if they win Group C, would play the runner-up from that Netherlands group, which could be Japan. Brazil-Japan is a hell round of 32 matchup for Brazil. That is not what I would want to see when there's 5 knockout games now. And Japan is the worst opponent you're going to play in the knockouts. That's tough for Brazil. Group G, Egypt and Belgium, the contenders there. Belgium, I don't even know if we can call them fool's gold, because that's been their motto for the last few years. So they're kind of, we just call them Pyrite. Like, we don't use fools. We use the scientific word Pyrite, because that's just what they are. They better come out against an Iranian team that has just been jerked around by FIFA and the U.S. They weren't even able to cool down after their last match in L.A. They had to basically leave the country immediately, is what I heard from some of the Iranians. So they have they're on the least amount of sleep, least amount of recovery. Belgium better put something on Iran today. What we got then? H, Uruguay maybe? I think Uruguay could be considered a fool's gold. Did not like what I saw from them against the Saudis on match day 1. And if they don't beat Cape Verde today, they might shockingly not, they play Spain match day 3. Spain will have to play all their starters in that game. So Uruguay is definitely on the hot seat. I don't know if I would call it fool's gold. Group I, Norway, I'm kind of torn between with Norway in thinking they're like just a cut below the top 8 in terms, in that like Morocco, Colombia, Croatia camp of being a true second tier team, and like, at the end of the day they only have 3 really like named players, and against France on match day 3 or against a team in the round of 32 or round of 16, one of these true blue bloods, they might get their meal handed to them. So maybe them. Senegal also in that group, a really tough group for them, who got held on for a while against Mbappe, and then of course the floodgates open, like it typically happens when Mbappe plays at the World Cup. So yeah, that's Group I. Group J, I'm a big proponent of Austria. I think they had a win against debutants Jordan on match day 1. I'm really excited to see them against Argentina tomorrow, because that is a game that Argentina is the healthy favorite. Not a lot of people are talking about Austria, but they do something. They press in a way. They their high press is kind of their manager Ralph Rangnick's his MO. He kind of is like the godfather of high pressing, and most of the time, unless you're one of the best teams, you don't press, because then you're pretty susceptible in the back. So I'm interested to see if they stick to their personality and their character against the world champions from Argentina. And then in terms, so as at J, we've got 2 more groups, K and L. Let's see, Portugal and Colombia. I think Colombia is for real. I'm not going to be like Alexi Wallace and put them number 5 in my power rankings. I think they're a healthy 7, 8, 9, and a really, really good team with a ferocious attack led by Luis Diaz of Bayern Munich. They still have some holes defensively. I think if you put Colombia and Ecuador's teams together, they would be a bona fide World Cup title contender. However, one's got the Ferrari engine, and then one's got the defensive structure, but the two is just not complete teams. I think Croatia could be fool's gold.
I was disappointed with how they played against England, man. I thought they'd come out a lot harder.
So they're the team that going into this World Cup, I was like, and they'll still probably turn it around. They'll get out of the group. I think they're probably going to lose in the round of 32 if I had to bet my life savings on it. They're a team that people are kind of like what I did with Belgium, honestly, but people are holding on to this core, this golden generation, the team that came in second in 2018, the team that somehow beat Brazil, came in third 4 years ago, which I thought was honestly more impressive than the original run in 2018. But those guys are old, and Modric, Perisic, Budimir, Kovacic, they've got a lot of guys that are upper 30s, and I think generally I'm in favor of, I want the one last ride for these nations. I want to see, Manuel Neuer. I was so happy when he said he was coming out of international retirement, playing goalie for Germany at this World Cup, because I love the big names, I love the stars, but I just feel like they stayed at it like one too long, one cycle too long. They probably should have transitioned, keep Modric, but a bunch of these other guys that are 35, 36, 37, I just think it's kind of stale. And they still have the same coach, Zlatko Dalic, from the 2018 run. For an international manager to last 8+ years, I mean, that's crazy longevity. These guys basically have a 2 to 4 year shelf life. And I think they will kind of go out, and it will not, it'll be kind of embarrassing. It wouldn't shock me if let's see, they're in group.
I was going to say, do you think there's any chance that they don't get out of their group? Because they don't have, Ghana and Panama, they don't have like I don't know, Tunisia to beat up on or anything like that.
Well, Panama, I don't know. Panama's not a looker by any means. I think it helps that 4 points gets you through, and so they don't need to win both games against Ghana and Panama. They really just need to beat one and draw the other. Which, if they lose to one of those teams, I would be flabbergasted. But if they come in second in their group, they're looking at Portugal or Colombia in the round of 32. And right now, Colombia ahead of Portugal in the other group, so they would actually play Portugal in the round of 32 right now. I think the Portuguese would smash Croatia by multiple goals in the round of 32, and that was a long 20-minute way of saying, yes, Mitchell, Croatia, I'm locking them as my fool's gold team. There you go.
Oh, by the way, Spain's up 3-0 in the first 24 minutes against the Saudis, so you don't have to worry about Spain being fool's gold in this particular matchup against Saudi Arabia. They're fine. They've got it figured out. I'm guessing you're going to ask.
I was thinking about him. I didn't count him.
He scored in the 21st and the 24th minute, so he is okay. Last questions on the World Cup, I'll say, and I think that a lot of when you have a tournament like this, who's hot, who's not, but also who you run into at what time and how you match up with them. Who do you think has the best draw moving forward, and who do you think you look at their potential path and go, their stay could be a lot shorter if this is how they end up who they end up playing?
Well, the best draw is a no-brainer. It's the United States of America.
Yeah.
They've won their group, and I don't know if you've seen it. They play a third-place team in the round of 32.
It's probably going to be Bosnia.
Right now, odds-on favorite for that is Bosnia. Maybe it's like Senegal would be a lot tougher. I wouldn't be as happy about that as an American fan. But if it's Bosnia, that would be great. It could also be like in Algeria and Austria, something like that. But Bosnia would be great. And then the more important thing about the U.S.'s draw, other than being at home, every game of the tournament, would be the group winner across from them that they would meet in the round of 16 is the Group G winner. And Belgium would be, I think I would have Belgium, honestly, as the group winner I would want to play the most if I was another group winner. Like even Mexico in Group A or Switzerland in Group B, I would put them on a pretty similar plane as Belgium. I think Belgium, the wheels have fallen off, similar to Croatia, and just kind of the golden generation running out. That is a dream scenario for the U.S. They stay on the West Coast, I think, until I don't know where the quarterfinal game would be. I think they go to Arlington at some point, maybe in the semifinals, if they were to somehow, advance that far. But yeah, it's a really comfortable draw for the U.S. And heading into this event, I was thinking U.S. round of 16 appearance would be an absolute win. Now I'm thinking if they don't make the quarterfinals, with how they've looked in the first two games, Balogun being the number 9 that has been a gift from heaven, and how they beat up on Paraguay, how they beat up on a scrappy but ultimately undermanned Australia team, they should be making it to the quarterfinals, and I want to see them against Spain in the quarterfinals. And if we can, maybe not embarrass ourselves in that quarterfinal against Spain, that's the new bar for this U.S. team.
And how about the opposite? A team where you look at and you go, man, on paper you think this team could get far, but they're going to have to go through hell to do it.
Yeah, I've been dreading Germany's draw from the beginning, just because if France wins their group, would have to beat France in the round of 16, which is kind of got lucky with the FIFA rankings. I think Germany's like number 9 in the world, so it just kind of, panned out that way. But let's see, other than Germany, Netherlands as a group winner, having to play Morocco potentially in the round of 32
that's tough.
Is insane. Yeah, so they would have an easy. Their round of 16 game, I believe, would be against the 2A, 2B winner then, which would actually be, Canada, Switzerland, whoever that is, South Korea. That's going to be a much easier game than Morocco if they get that far. But, Morocco in the round of 32 is a tough draw. Argentina also, we haven't mentioned. I would put them in the U.S. camp. They might be kind of alone in their quarter because everybody thought, Portugal's going to win their group, Argentina's going to win their group. They might meet in the quarterfinals. If that's Colombia, Colombia playing them in the quarterfinals, that is a dream for Argentina. So they might really not have to take off the training wheels for a long time, Argentina. I think you'd have to go... Let's see, then Brazil in the top right. I mentioned, Japan wouldn't be an easy round of 32, but then you have the England-Mexico quadrant. I don't know. It kind of, we really have to wait and see if one of these big countries, like a Portugal, I guess they would be the most likely candidates. Netherlands could potentially lose their group. If Netherlands comes in second and has to play Brazil in the round of 32, that would be, absolute cinema. But right now, it's kind of a pretty even draw. If it goes chalk, because the big dogs have handled their business for the most part. But U.S. and Argentina, they have to be the most happy, and then we'll see.
So, who's your pick to win it all right now?
To win it all, I think France before the tournament. I didn't see anything in their first game that would lead me to think differently. I do think, it's funny. Some of these teams. I mean, France has more than 4, honestly, but they have 4 of the best attacking players in the world, with Mbappe, and then Dembele, Olise, and Doué. The problem is they're kind of all naturally either wingers or number 10s. I mean, honestly, Mbappe is playing number 9, but he's a winger. I think his speed, he's a burner. He wants to take people on. He's not a guy you just, you sit like a Balogun, in the box, and he's underused in that role. But they have all these guys. I mean, Olise is the best player at his club, the best creator, and he's like a third fiddle on this France team. So I do think they kind of have to figure out the specific roles more and who's going to do the dirty work. There's only one soccer ball. You can't have four kind of flair wingers, and none of them track back and do the defensive, the gritty, dirty work. So someone's going to have to be the French Josh Hart, per se, and do some of those things. I do think France would be my pick. But honestly, if I had to pick one then that I wasn't thinking about so much before the tournament, that I could kind of see them making the final on the other half of the bracket now, would be England. A lot was made about their lineup and who they didn't bring to this World Cup. Thomas Tuchel making some tough decisions, but they seemed, 4 goals against Croatia is no joke. Harry Kane, not just his finishing ability, but his hold-up play, the passing division. Kane is like an all-around number 9 savant now. He's not just a finisher. And, I think I picked in my bracket, I picked Portugal originally as my other finalist on the bottom half of the bracket. Life on the line, I'd probably say France over England at this point.
See, I was on Spain, and I think it's too early to overreact. I mean, it's actually been laughably common how much teams that go on to win the World Cup really stumble out of the gate. I mean, we saw it with Spain in 2010. So it's not terribly, Argentina did it in 2022. They lost to the Saudis. So this isn't an uncommon thing. And, Spain didn't even lose. They just tied with an opponent that they were expected to, handle quite easily. If I was forced to change between, what you mentioned about their path and just what I saw, Argentina looks pretty damn good right now. And I think that they have a better shot than what I would have given them coming into the World Cup. And if you're getting that Messi moving forward, obviously you're not expecting a hat trick every night because, that's just logic. But if you can just get a fraction of that moving forward, Argentina is going to be a dangerous team mixed in with the path that they have. Again, I'm staying on Spain, but Argentina could definitely be one that, makes one last run with Messi here.
Yeah, and they played the rounds in Group H. I would think originally that was more daunting in potential Uruguay round of 32, but I'm not really scared of that. Again, if Colombia wins Group K and it ends up being Colombia as the best team standing between Argentina and the semifinals, that is about as easy of a draw you can get. So we'll see. I'm sure there's going to be a twist or a turn. I don't think all the 8 favorites are going to win their group. We're going to have, Euro 2016 will always stick in my mind as the biggest example of a lopsided bracket. Sometimes it happens where 5 of the top 6 title contenders are all on one half, and then sometimes you get something where it's a little bit more even. But yeah, Argentina is definitely in good shape right now.
All right, well, let's close this thing out with some fantasy football discussion as the here for a long time, not a good time draft is tonight. Now, Greg, both you and I, especially me, are not expected to be making a bunch of selections. Well, I guess you'll have quantity, not as much quality. You have a lot of picks in the 8th and 9th round of this draft, but you don't start until 303. And my only pick in this draft is in round 7, and it's the second to last pick in round 7. So we've got really.
Wait, did you say your only pick or your first pick?
My only pick.
You have one selection?
And I might not even have that. I might be looking to trade that. But I will say, Colin does have an offer sitting in his inbox. I'm forcing the issue. I'm forcing him to turn down 3 first-round picks for Jeremiah Love. So
I like that.
So we'll see if that is, and that is one that, maybe it's a lot, but you're hoping that those are late round picks, and then 2028 Howie, that could be high, but again, this is the number 1 overall pick we're talking about, and I really feel like I'm a running back away from, I don't want to say being a title contender because I was just in the title game, but I feel like being a team that can consistently compete for titles moving forward because, you had a lot of injuries last year. You ran into stuff with Rashee Rice and was it CeeDee Lamb that was hurt as well? Or
Neighbors. Kraft was a big one too.
Yeah.
Kraft was popping off. Yeah.
The Dalton Kincaid trade not looking great so far, but Tucker Kraft's kind of mitigated the effects of that. But then to lose him was pretty rough there. Josh winning another title, just an absolutely infuriating thing. Me and him have an agreement, but I just don't feel good about it at all, especially after seeing that he has multiple 2027 firsts. Breece Hall for a 27 first is, it's agreed upon verbally, but it just hasn't happened because I don't want this man to have 3 27 firsts and, maybe a Jamar Chase trade happens or something along those lines.
I'm just very uncomfortable with that man having that many picks.
Yeah, that puts Godfather options in play. All right, that's a lot to unpack there. I want to get to Josh. I want to get to you and talk. Give me your thought, or give you my thoughts on the Jeremiah Love offer. But the first name you mentioned was Colin, and I think any talks about our draft tonight, heading into the 6th year of our beloved Dynasty League, has to begin with that man, Colin. The last time I think he has maybe 23 or 24 draft picks in tonight's draft. Why does he have 23 picks in tonight's draft? That is general manager malpractice. You can only keep so many. He's got, he has the first 2 picks. He's got some good picks, but if I were him, I would consolidate some of the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round picks for later years and kept that equity instead of losing it all. I mean, that is insane. And we talk about it all the time, these guys in our league that are not dotting all their I's and crossing their T's and doing the little GM things that we do to have a successful team. I mean, I get it. Some people want to play fantasy just for the fall, but you're in Dynasty League. You have 23 draft picks tonight. There's only 9 or 10 rounds for the actual draft. What do you plan on doing? It's crazy.
Yeah, this man has the 1st and 2nd pick, which, believe it or not, is something that's happened before. Because you picked 1st and 2nd back in 2024. You basically picked 1st and 2nd in 2023 because you got Bijan after just 1 season. Last year, I picked 2nd and 3rd, which, by the way, the criticism I got for taking Tetero McMillan over Travis Hunter, I think I'm looking pretty good on that so far.
That was not criticism from my mouth.
No, you were on my side because you're smart and know what the hell you're doing. But Colin tonight, he has pick 1, pick 2, then he has pick 8. Then in the 2nd round, he has 1, 2, 3, and 9. 3rd round, 2, 7, and 12. 4th round, 2, 9, and 10. 5th round, 2, 7, and 9. 6th round, 2. 7th round, 2, 12. 8th round, 2, 8. And then the 2nd pick of the 10th round. This is where I feast. Because if you remember last year, Zelig picked Harold Fannin at the end of the 3rd round. But he couldn't keep him because he had 9 picks in the first 4 rounds.
Yes.
So we dropped Harold Fannin and Trevor Etienne. And I picked them both up because I'm like, well, let's just see what happens. And then Harold Fannin was a major reason why I got to the championship game. So this is why this is so important. And you can't just be like, oh, look at me, I've got picks. Because you can't keep everybody. You use those picks for something. That's how you be smart. As opposed to, these fucking idiots that aren't doing that.
So, yeah, the thing about Dynasty Fantasy Football is, everyone has such a stick up their ass about trades, and it's like, oh, I'm going to send you this 4 nickels for a quarter, offer. I know 4 nickels doesn't add up to 25 cents, but that's the point I'm trying to make. But
honestly, that's generous.
Most trades between 2 competent general managers are actually beneficial for both parties. And I know, we don't see a lot because we're all amateur. Well, most of us are amateurs at this. Most people don't really care that much. But generally, an example, if there's a tanking team and a contending team, a tanking team might trade away a really good player, who's an old asset, like a Derrick Henry or something. You're the tanking team, you get rid of Derrick Henry. Okay, he's not going to play more than a couple more years anyways. You shed him, your expected points go down, so you get a better draft pick. The contending team gets a really good player in return. Okay, maybe they win a championship. But Colin and these people in our league do not understand basic dynasty functions. So in a situation here where you, Mitchell, have only one draft pick and could certainly benefit. I'm not saying you gotta get a first or second round pick, but it would behoove Colin to maybe try to get one of your 16th, 17th best players for like a third rounder or something that could benefit both of you. And now that's not an option that's on the table because people sit on their hands and are doofuses. And it really ticks me off because ideally in a Dynasty league, I want 11 suitors. It makes my job as the GM of my team a lot easier because I actually have options. But now it's like, okay, I can only go to basically you. I can go to Josh if I want to overpay for something. I can go to Howie if it's his time of the month where he's back like food. And whereas Josh keeps winning these titles because he has open lines to everyone. He's made trades with Emily. He's made the biggest trade of our league with Zelig. And me and you, we have like 4 open phone lines. And rant over, but it's crazy that Colin has all those picks and is doing nothing with them.
Well, to be fair, some of these people will make trades during the season. They just won't do anything before the season. And so that's what's frustrating. But, it's draft day. Anything can happen. People want to make picks. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's talk about some of the trades that have happened in the offseason before we make any draft predictions. Probably the biggest trade of the offseason directly involves you. Christian McCaffrey has been kind of the story of the dynasty so far because the McCaffrey trade directly resulted in Josh winning 3 chips. Everyone knew it was lopsided from the start, including Joe Burrow in that trade, and it has proven to be exactly that. But McCaffrey goes to you for a first-round pick. Some people, and by some people I mean me, think that McCaffrey is due for a major fall-off. However, you're betting on at least one more season of productivity from the guy. What do you think about, first of all, what drew you to that trade, and was it just for this season, or are you expecting multiple years?
Well, ideally, look, first of all, I want to say it was a desperate move. It's not a move I make if you don't beat me shockingly in the semifinals last year. But when you have injuries last year that I had, and when you had the best regular season team of all time, but clearly underperformed, coming in 3rd place for a second straight year, I'm not playing for bronze medals. So I was definitely feeling the heat, and I had to make a desperate move. For me, I'd love to get 2 good years out of McCaffrey. If he could be the RB 8 this year, and then maybe the RB 15 next year, I'll be extremely happy. If he plays 12 plus games each year, I'll be extremely happy. But I just looked at it like, well, look, the 111/the 112, whatever pick that ends up being, isn't a guarantee. Yes, I got A-Chan there, but more often it's like a Keon Coleman or a Jonathan Mingo type. I don't know. And yes, there's been some good second round picks too, but I view that pick. I know a lot's been made of this draft next year and how deep it is, but I think it's mostly quarterback. I think it's more of a deep real life NFL draft, but just from what I've read so far. But I see that kind of as like a 40% chance that you're getting a legit asset for like 5+ years. And so in that case, I still felt like my age timeline with Bijan, Gibbs, Neighbors, and A-Chan all being as young as they are, I still don't feel like I kind of had something to play with that 2027 first. So for me, it's like, let's get over the hump this year. Let's throw all our eggs in this basket. I don't think it cripples me that much down the road because, like I said, now the fact that we did change the number of keepers does kind of make me second guess it a little bit because I don't know if Josh changed that before or after the trade. I think he probably changed it before.
I think it was before.
Okay, but yeah, because if you can only keep so many players before 15. Now it's 20. So I do think there's a little bit more danger in trading away the first, because now you can say, oh, Greg, even if that's who had like a low end 112 prospect, you're going to be keeping it. It's not like because I'm pretty much maxed out right now. In the old format, I have like my 13 studs, and then I can't really do much else. So yeah, that was kind of my thought. But my thought process is I better fucking win the title this year. If I don't, it's going to be a nightmare anyways. So let me roll the dice for CMC.
Well, speaking of rolling the dice, I think that your move, while it isn't one that I would have made, I understand it, and it is, I think, a high risk, high reward move. But let's talk about Howie and what he's done this postseason, because this man, I have no idea what he's doing, because he is a pretender that wants to contend, but is making moves that don't move the needle for him whatsoever. He gives up a 309 and 111 in this draft to get Chuba Hubbard, which I know that people don't really. I know people really don't value 111 in this draft, and like honestly, fair. It is probably closer to like 206 or 207 in most years, but I don't even value Chuba Hubbard to that degree. I think that a mid 2 and a 3 is overpaying for Chuba Hubbard. And then you get Travis Etienne, or whatever the hell he's going by these days, for a 2028 first, which I wasn't necessarily looking to move Etienne, but I like to think I'm a smart GM, and if there's an opportunity to better my team, I'm going to take it. And if I can get $5 on the dollar for a player, I'm going to take that deal, because I valued Etienne around a second round pick, maybe a second and like a fourth or something along those lines. But if that was the offer, I'm probably not trading him. But at a first, buy. We'll figure out how to replace RB2 down the line. We have a 2028 first. It's probably going to be a lottery pick, and we'll figure out what the deal is moving forward. I thought that was an extremely savvy trade by me, but even more so, Howie. You got Etienne and Hubbard, and like now you go from like 8th in the standings to like 8th in the standings. Like, I don't really think this moves the needle for him at all. Like, just he wasn't close to being in like the top 6, and I don't think he really got closer.
So what did you give up to acquire Travis Etienne from Colin?
That is a great question. I gave up a 2 in this year's draft, and a 2028 3 and a 2028 8.
Okay, so a 2 and a 3, which
and by the way, that was Elijah's 2026 too. So I mean, regardless of whether it was mine or Elijah's, it's late.
Oh, so it's the what, 209?
209.
Oh, you gave up 209 and a third. So, I often hear Dynasty Fantasy Football talked about as like a market game, like the stock market. You're basically just trying to capitalize. You're trying to buy low and sell high. You literally buy a player in ETN for a late second and a third, a player that is pivotal in getting you to a championship game.
Oh, I don't even.
You sell him. What?
I don't even make the playoffs without him. Because I don't know if you remember, I was like 4-6. Amarian Hampton was hurt. My team was in like 8th place. And then I make that trade as kind of a last gasp. And I go on a bit of a run, get into the playoffs, and then, go on a run in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So then you turn around, you sell him for the most valuable asset that you could have in our Dynasty League, a Howie first-round pick, which any other GM will always be envious of you holding a Howie first round pick. Those are like gold. So yeah, that's just A+ GM work by you to buy low on ETN, sell high, and now you can kind of reset. You can do what you want with that pick. You know, personally, I agree with everything you said with Howie. I mean, the man is the only person I've ever seen to build tanking team without any of his first or second round picks. He is not a contender, but now he has this weird team with Lad McConkey and Jalen Waddle and Chuba Hubbard and Travis Etienne. A team, like you said, goes from eighth to eighth. For you, personally, I would hang on to that Howie asset a little bit longer, and I would not be looking to make a Godfather offer for Jeremiah Love just because I'm not in love with the landing spot per se. I think you're better off retaining some of that flexibility, but it wouldn't be terrible to combine him with Amorian and Ted and the young assets that you have. I just think that Howie first is in a different class. Who knows what Howie's going to do 12 months from now?
That's the thing for me is I'm only ever going to get rid of this pick if it is for like the number 1 overall pick and someone that I do value. Like I think Jeremiah Love, I know his landing spot isn't as good, but I think he can be a Jahmyr Gibbs level asset. And so if I can make that happen, I'd be well with I have the assets to trade to make that happen. It's just up to Colin to refuse that offer. But if he does refuse that offer, then that pick is basically locked in for me until 2028. So I'm happy regardless. Either I get a top flight running back or I have a Howie pick that, let's see what happens with this thing. Another trade that Howie did make the trade. He gave away Dak Prescott to Brandon.
Stupid.
Yeah, this was, let's see, what did he give up? I think it was a third and a fourth. No, 2 thirds. He gave up two 2028 thirds to get Dak Prescott. I don't think that takes Brandon out of the Fernando Mendoza market, but I think it should. Because I think that if he doesn't make this trade, Brandon is 100% taking Fernando Mendoza in the first round tonight. I don't know why Howie makes that trade because he made this. Let me see. Who are his quarterbacks right now? I know he has McCarthy because he's an idiot. He's got Jordan Love and he's got Tyler Shuck. So he's not barren at quarterback. Love has his moments, but he's a little hot and cold for me. As far as fantasy goes, I think he's a great real life quarterback. But I just don't know what Howie's doing. I don't know what his direction is. I don't think he knows what his direction is.
Well, this is why, acquiring quarterbacks in a 1 QB Dynasty league, it should always be kind of lower on your priority list because Brandon, he gives up almost nothing. And to pull in a player like Dak Prescott, who at the very least has a few more years of pretty high-level quarterbacking. I don't know exactly what his numbers were last year, but I imagine it was pretty decent, and that's without Lamb for large some spurts there. But I don't know.
He was QB6 last year. His last few finishes when healthy, when he plays a full season, the last 4 years he's had a full season, QB6, QB3, QB8, QB2. So with him, it's just a matter of staying healthy. But when he's healthy, you know exactly what you're getting.
See, Brandon, we could talk about Brandon. Brandon is stuck in this la-la land where he thinks he's actually going to field a serious team this season, which is just great comedy to me.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't get Dak Prescott, he is in hell at the quarterback position with Kyler Murray and
Aaron Rodgers, because he went in on Anthony Richardson.
Anthony Richardson was the big miss, yeah. Big bust. I don't know if you call him I would call him a real life bust, but I would call him a pretty big fantasy bust too, just because he hasn't stayed healthy and whatnot. But Brandon, look, we talked about it ad nauseum during your wedding weekend, but I offered him A-10, multiple firsts, multiple seconds for Chase. That would have been the time to get out and blow it up. Now, you talk about how are we going from ace to ace. I mean, Brandon he's going to be finishing six through ace. I mean, he's right in that zone. He's not as good as Josh, Elijah, me, Jason Patrick, you, especially if you make another move and then play the teammates.
Michael?
There's another decent team, too. Oh, Michael. Yeah, Michael has to. Yeah, I don't know. But Brandon is like, you're delusional, man. You are absolutely delusional with who is on your team.
Speaking of people that are delusional, I just want to – I know we've talked about this plenty. Zelig and not moving off of Evans and Kittle when he got the chance to. Just –
oh, yeah.
I mean, because Kittle is basically done. You have nothing left as far as Kittle goes. And I think Evans going to San Francisco is, I don't want to say the kiss of death, but I just don't think that he's going to do anything there either. And you've got players that you could have really gotten something for, and instead you just have Genty, London, and roster fillers.
Yeah, I've offered Zelig a first for Kittle, and he hasn't accepted it. Funnily enough, I offered, I know I told you this, but I offered Colin. I think I offered him multiple firsts and Kincaid for Tyler Warren last year, and he, auto declines.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of processing that he didn't do that.
I would never have offered that deal if I were you, but I think that declining that deal is even more egregious.
It was right when Tucker Kraft got injured the first time, and I didn't know when he would be coming back, and but yeah, I mean, if you're selling, why not, you had some decent pieces. I love Drake London. I love Caleb Williams, but it's just GM malpractice.
Final point before we get to the draft predictions. A trade actually was made on the wedding day, but it was Elijah getting Alvin Kamara and a fifth for a third and a fourth. I just don't see Kamara having any value at this point, and this is just Josh doing I know he's not getting a ton of value, but he's not riding Kittle until the wheels fall off. He's getting something.
It's what smart GMs do. It's what I just spoke about with you. Josh is playing the market as he should. Alvin Kamara, what are you going to get from him? I mean, it's like the McCaffrey trade to a much, much smaller extent, obviously. He was right to want to part ways with CMC. He just won three titles. Might as well get the first rounder and kind of reset things. Same thing with Kamara. Elijah is he's actually made some trades, so I can't hate him as much as I hate a Zelig or the Prices or, whomever. But Elijah has not proven to be a very smart trader. But then anytime you even put Nico Collins or, Josh Jacobs or any one of his in a trade offer, he is the quickest to decline. Really am not a fan of working with Elijah.
All right, so here is the draft. What I expect from tonight. All right, so you've got Colin at 1. Assuming he keeps that pick, he'd be stupid to not take Jeremiah Love, and I expect that's where he goes. I've basically gotten confirmation from him that he's taking Carnell Tate at number 2. That's also what I would have done as well.
Michael Hawes has the number 3 pick.
Tyson, right?
I'm thinking Tyson there as well. Emily at 4. I just imagine that she picks whoever is top on the board. That is Makai Lemon, which honestly I think would be a good pick regardless for her. Brandon, I'm actually expecting him to go Casey Concepcion as his pick instead of Jadarian Price.
I think the Seahawks running back.
I think he wants to avoid another Seahawks running back. I know he was frustrated with Kenneth Walker not getting goal line touches. I think he's going to take the former NC State receiver and ACC. Brandon Price at 6. I do think he takes Jadarian Price at 6. God knows he needs running back help. 7, Zelig. I'm sure he's going to take a quarterback that he doesn't play. I don't know what the deal is with Mendoza. If he's going to go in round 1, I actually think that Zelig's going to go with Kenyon Sadiq at tight end because Kittle's getting old. 8, Colin. He might go Mendoza because he takes a quarterback every year. So I'm actually.
The Bryce Young pick will still always make me giggle.
Bryce Young and Cam Ward were both just like, okay, sure, why not? So I'll have him going Mendoza. Then Howie I think goes Omar Cooper at 1-9. Then at 1-10, I think Emily. Let's see who's the top rated player on the board at that point. Offensive player. Let me scroll down.
Is it a second running back? Sean Coleman? I don't even know.
Weirdly enough, this makes no damn sense. And I hope she does it, and she might because it's the Chief. Emmett Johnson. That makes no damn sense. So, for the sake, I don't know. I think that she's going to go like Jonah Coleman or something. Then Elijah at 11. I think that he is going to go with Eli Stowers, the tight end from the Eagles. And then Emily at 12, I think will go Denzel Boston.
So you think he's got Jake Ferguson, right?
Yeah.
That's his starters.
But that's not a tight end that prevents you from picking another tight end.
Right. I agree. Yeah, that's fair. And then what was the 112, Denzel Boston?
Denzel Boston, the other Browns wide receiver. So you'll get multiple Browns pass catchers and multiple Jets pass catchers. Maybe 1 or 2 of them will work out. I don't know. This isn't just, bias. I do like the Jets pass catchers better. I really like Omar Cooper Jr. I think he's pretty good, and I want to see how the Jets use Sadiq. But I think that Concepcion, just because of his role and the fact that the Browns don't have a guy like Garrett Wilson to already eat up targets, I think he'll be the first one of that group taken. I'm curious to see if someone goes Chris Bell, because the Dolphins have no one to throw the ball to. But Chris Bell's also coming off an ACL injury. So maybe Antonio Williams could be the guy that kind of sneaks into the first round. I'm not sure. The running back group this year is just sad. I mean, if you're not getting Love or Price, there's really nothing for you. So that means this is a bad year to have a lot of seconds and thirds. Just saying. It's why I was this is a bad year. This is not a deep draft class. You have 1, you have 2, but not a great year to have all of those mid-round picks. But
yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said there. Like I said, I haven't done a ton of research, so that sounds good to me. I don't know what I'm doing at the 303 yet. Not that that's that tasty of a pick. I might just throw a dart at highest tight end. I might get the fucking Broncos DST at that point. Anything's possible. I might get a handcuff. I might go, just get a backup running back, a Bijan or Achan or whatever. I don't know what I'm doing at 303, but were there any because you can see the keepers now, right? I mean, I'm sure with 20 keepers as opposed to 15, there probably weren't any shocks, but was there anything that caught your eye while looking at those?
Let's see, because those have not gone official yet, and there are a few people that have not made them.
Some people are.
Why the fuck did Colin keep Will Howard? I mean, I know that he doesn't have the most to work with, but he kept Will Howard. He kept Phil Maffa. Sure, how he kept JJ McCarthy, because I feel like he's contractually obligated to do so. We're gonna get some strange keepers just because of the fact that there are so many. I'm surprised Brandon didn't keep Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably gonna keep. I have Broncos DST in there right now. I'll probably just keep them as opposed to to whomever. I don't know.
I'm a little surprised that Howie kept like Kyle Hamilton. Like DBs are just one that I don't.
Oh yeah.
Like I kept Brandon Aubrey and I kept Jordan Brooks. But
Jordan Brooks makes sense.
Yeah, Josh kept Ben Sinnott, which
he does that just to spite me. Fuck him.
Maybe. I'm trying to see, did anyone keep like multiple defenses? It looks like that's not the case right now. There's nothing. The number of third round picks that have turned out to be something on the team that they were drafted on is kind of low. If not in the, like, it's one hand.
At that point, third round picks basically mean as much as like a 6th or 7th, where, at least you have the additional Puka every 5 to 7 years. It's like, at that point, they're all dart throws.
Exactly.
Well, the only other thing I wanted to mention is, so like the hot seat rankings, the clown rankings. Obviously, I've gotten a lot of shit, rightly so, this offseason so far.
Elijah better thank his lucky stars that you're around, though.
Elijah is me with great PR. So, next on the chopping block, Howie gets the shit that he deserves. Elijah is definitely next. But then, at some point, Michael, we kind of thought Michael had a chance at making the playoffs last year. If he doesn't make the playoffs this year, we have to start clowning him more. And then, at what point does Colin go from, draft pick hoarder to someone whose team actually, at some point, like the Jets, if you pick in the top 5-10 every year, at some point you have to turn it around.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm not saying the Jets have turned it around yet, but I know they have, the Colts picks, and it's looking a little brighter right now than it has been a lot for the last 10 years. So, Michael this year, though, I'm really watching him closely. And then Colin has to turn the corner from pretender to contender at some point, too.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't just... Picks have to turn into something at some point. And they just haven't yet. But, we'll see. We shall see tonight. Draft at 8 o'clock. Excited to see how it goes. Hoping that Colin presses the button, makes it happen. But if not, then I think we're still in good shape. We'll see what happens. Greg, as always. Sorry?
Gun to head. Pick your first, second, and third place for this year.
Ooh. Okay, gun to head. I'm picking you to win, because I do think you still have the best roster. Second, I think Elijah, now that Justin Jefferson doesn't have a full season of McCarthy, I do think that, JSN, Justin Jefferson, Josh Allen, James Cook, I think that he's number 2. And then I think Josh and I are battling it out for third this year, and I'd probably lean towards Josh.
Okay, so I agree. Me at 1, Elijah 2. I think this is the year, though, that Josh finally loses in the first round of the playoffs. I think that horseshoe that you wanted to talk about is finally gone. And
was McCaffrey the horseshoe?
McCaffrey might have been the horseshoe.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, McCaffrey has won 4 league rings in a row.
Yeah, that's
The
true.
only one he didn't win was the first season you won. So McCaffrey could be in line for a 5th straight ring. I'm gonna go with just purely based off of karma. I think Patrick comes in 3rd. I think taking over that orphan team, just the fact that he took over Jason's orphan and we got him out of our league, and Patrick is the hero there. I'm picking him in 3rd place.
You know what? I actually gave some thought to that. I think it was a little hasty saying Josh and me are fighting it out for 3rd. I think Patrick will be right there with us. And in the 6th place, the Brandons will fight for it. I think Michael will be the one that gets there, and then Howie's left going.
Yeah.
But I thought I was better, but everyone knows no, that's not what happened.
Michael should be the 6th seed, and then the Brandons will be disappointed again, and Howie's just an idiot. But we love him.
I certainly love him. I love having his picks. So, all right. Well, as always, good talking to you, man. Get home safe from that World Cup. And by the way, happy Father's Day to you. I know it's your first, so happy Father's Day. Get home to your family and your kid, and we'll talk later, man.
Beautiful. Thanks a lot, Mitchell.
All right.
See you, bro.
See ya.